is I give them 2 slices of bread, a jar of peanut butter, and a jar of jelly, and we have to make a PB&J. Everyone on the team has to play a role in making the sandwich. Nobody can have the same roll. Nobody can have more than one roll, and we got to get the sandwich all the way made.
Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I am your host and coach, Tyler Johnson. Whether you've tuned in to elevate your mindset, your game, or just your day, you are in the right place. My guest this episode, for episode 150, is currently the lead mental performance coach for the Real Monarchs, the RSL Academy, and the assistant mental performance coach for Real Salt Lake. He also works with Utah State and Westminster Athletics, as well as many other high school teams in the Rocky Mountain region. Welcome to the Elev8 podcast, John Osborn.
Doing awesome. Glad to be here.
Good. I know we're excited to have you. I guess to start off, just to give our listeners a little background on yourself, just a little bit of your background and what led you to the work you do now, and give us our listeners an idea of kind of all the things you're working with.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Yeah, I've been doing sport performance psychology coaching for about the past 7 years. I went to grad school, got my master's degree at the University of Utah. Some people go to grad school because they already know what they want to do. I was one of those people that went there to kind of like find out if that's what I want to do. And so they'll actually, not many people know this, but my whole first year, I actually was thinking about quitting the whole time because I'm like, man, I just don't know if this seems too good to be true, and anyways, I'm glad I stuck with it, because it's been awesome. And so we've been rocking and rolling, just trying to work with as many high performers as possible, and spreading the good news around. And it's been an awesome kind of a crazy journey, but it's been really, really good.
Yeah, good. And I know part of looking up about on you in your own personal kind of like you suffered some injuries kind of as an athlete, and I think that's a common thing, right? I think the longer you play, the more likely something's going to keep you sidelined for a little bit. How come athletes keep their focus forward when they're going through kind of maybe an injury, and maybe it's a couple weeks and maybe it's a couple months that they need to rehab?
Yeah, there's 2 things that really, really helped me. That It's kind of interesting. It was actually my injury that helped me keep going through grad school. And what I mean by that was, like, there were certain things I did. I had my first knee surgery when I was 16. So I really dealt with injury a lot through my like main competitive years. And there were certain things that I did at the time, not knowing why, where like it wasn't like I knew the science, like I wasn't a sports psychologist at 16,
Right.
But as I studied things in school, I'm like, oh, that's why that worked. Right. And so a couple of things that as I reflect on my experience that I think can really, really help injured athletes is one, we're kind of removing this whole like good, bad, positive, negative, good days, bad days type things. And instead my like preferred terminology is like helping and hurting. Right. Because as an athlete, like if I'm off the court or off the field, whatever, yeah, I might not be able to help my team physically, right? But you can still help your team, right? And that's one of the things that I thought that I did really well when I was 16, sitting out my junior year of high school. I missed the entire season. I felt like I was almost maybe more helpful. Like I wasn't out there playing. I wasn't actually impacting the game, but man, I felt like I did a lot of work helping the younger players who maybe didn't have the experience that I did, who were going to have to step up, like helped them understand our game plan, helped them understand the game in general. So I think that's one of the things athletes can do, like if they're dealing with injury, is just remain helpful.
Yeah. That's there's I'd heard a story not too long ago about a coach that was a football coach recruiting a kid that played basketball. He happened to have like a sprained ankle. He wasn't playing that night. And he told the coach he was coming to watch the game. And he's like, well, he's not playing tonight. He goes, I know.
Yeah, I almost like if I were in this situation, I'd be like telling coaches, like, hey, give me like what are the situations where I can come and actually observe like the true character of a person?
Yeah.
Like I don't want to go come watch some blowout. I don't even necessarily want to watch like a good game, but come tell me when I can come see what this kid is actually like, And
Yeah.
so I think that's awesome. We saw a really good example of that. Was it this past week in the NFL? Like the people loved doing the side by side of Deshaun Watson and Joe
Mm.
Burrow both out. Deshaun was chilling up there in the owner's box, when people are like giving him such a bad time, and I'm like, wouldn't you also, like, it's Cleveland, right? Like, wouldn't I also just like love to just chill out in the owner's box? And but I think anyway, it's an opportunity, right? Like I don't think Deshaun's wrong for doing that, or that Joe is more right for doing that. It's just all about like remaining helpful, because I think when that's like your mindset and your mentality, then you're looking for opportunities.
Mm.
That's one of the words that I use a lot with the athletes I'm working with, of like one of the best mindsets for me that an athlete can have to stay competitive is to be opportunistic. Because opportunistic doesn't just mean that I take the opportunities that come my way. It means that I'm actively looking, like that might be an opportunity, let's pursue it. That might be an opportunity, I'm going to pursue that. And if you're trying to remain helpful as an injured athlete, like going through recovery, then like you can remain opportunistic, right? And
Yeah.
that's a muscle, that's a mindset that we definitely want once you're back on the
Right.
playing field, right? So we can continue to develop that like opportunistic mentality. Then I think that's awesome, right? And so that's one of the things that like remaining helpful kind of forces you to do if you're doing it right, is constantly looking for opportunities. Is that filling up somebody's water? Is that grabbing gear? Is that breaking down film? Is that talking to somebody on the sideline? Right? Like I'm constantly looking for opportunities to be helpful, and I think keeps that. And that actually is the second thing that I think being helpful really does, and what I would like encourage athletes that are going through that injury to do is to stay competitive. Right. That doesn't mean, getting competitive at family game night and throwing tantrums and things like that. Right. But being competitive is always about like my best, right? Like being competitive with your recovery, right? That it's
Yeah.
like, hey, I'm asking that to my PT a couple of times. So like, hey, how many reps of this like should I be able to do, by Friday or whatever, right? And they'd say you should be able to, be able to do this, right? Where you'd be able to, range of motion should be this. I was dealing with knee injuries, so like range
Yeah.
of motion was a really big thing. It's like, by next week, your range of motion should be at 40 degrees or whatever the number was. And I was like, I would be competitive towards that thing, right? That I'm not trying to like beat somebody else. I'm trying to like, this is what, like for me to be at my best, I should be at 40. Well, I'm going to try and get to, 41, and
Mm.
just kind of maintain that competitiveness that you love and you miss when you're playing. But you can actually do some of the same types of things. Yeah, it's not going to move the needle for people when you're telling the stories, like, hey man, I did 41 degrees today.
Right.
And you're like, not the same thing as like, scoring 35 in a game or something, but we can still like maintain that same competitiveness.
For sure. I think, and that's, probably one of the most healthy things you can do it. I remember, going through some rehab, and they're like, all right, we need, 200 of these reps a day. It's like, all right, I want to get to 250 or 300,
Right.
and whatever that was. And it also gives you that opportunity, I think, too, if you are opportunistic in the things you just talked about, to maybe detach a bit from the results of your sport and
Oh,
be able
yeah.
to focus more on that, internal you versus you competition, because that's kind of what you're left with when you're in the training room sometimes, when you don't have their other things.
Yeah, I was gonna say like when you're injured, like you're like the results that you've like really really cared about like really are kind of out the window, right? I think that's one of the reasons why so many athletes, like injured athletes, go through that like emotional funk.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember going through, and that's what I call like that emotional
100%.
funk where you just,
I said 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
did I lose you?
No. Yeah. No, you're good. I just said, yeah, 100%.
Okay,
Yeah.
no, you're good. Awesome. Sorry. Um, yeah, what was it? So I think athletes go through that like emotional funk, and I think it's because they've cared about results for so much in their life as an athlete, which I'm all about, right? Like athlete, sports athletics
For
is
sure.
is a results based, space and whatnot. But when they're like those results are just ripped away, it's like, man, no matter how much you want, like you're not gonna get the
Right.
results, right? But it is a great time to like reflect and kind of like reconfigure your brain to be just so focused on the process of getting better, right? Improvement for yourself, some ways that you can actually step away from the game and actually like improve with what you have going on. So yeah, I completely agree. I think it totally lets kind of rebalances the emphasis on processes versus outcomes. I totally agree with you.
One of the things I saw in your bio, I wanted you to explain and get into, because I mean, I had a good peanut butter and jelly sandwich, not too long ago, but
Oh,
yeah, tell me a little bit about the PB&J
the
you like
PB
to
and
talk
J.
about. Yeah.
So I one of my strengths, and that sounds so weird to say, and it still bothers me when I talk about strengths, because I'm just I'm from that generation where it's like, hey, you don't talk about yourself, don't talk about your strengths, right?
Yeah.
So hey, you want to talk about weaknesses? Sure, let's jump in there. But one of the things that I really try and pride myself on is being creative and memorable. So when I'm working with a team, I like I don't want always just go to the whiteboard and we won't have like a whiteboard session where we're talking about a topic. But I really like to do some type of activity or leave a lesson, something that's going to be memorable for the benefit of them and their coaches, right? Because we're covering like really what are the odds that the lesson and like the lesson from that one day like perfectly applies to the situation they're like facing now or they're about to face,
Sure.
right? Odds are that lesson is going to become really, really applicable, in 3 months, right?
Right.
And so I like to have something that's memorable so that coach can be like, hey guys, remember when we made this PB&J with John? Why did we do that, right? And then the coach is able to like rehash the lesson quickly in a memorable way, and the guys aren't like, wait, hold on, what did we do? Like, wait, what
Yeah.
did he draw on the whiteboard? It's like, no, PB&J. Oh, I definitely remember that, right?
Right.
So yeah, I'm always trying to find creative activities, and I make up a lot of them my own. And I'm really proud of that. Just like
Yeah.
having these random activities kind of come to my mind, or here's a lesson I'm trying to teach. How can I do that in a memorable way? And so, anyway, so with the PB&J, what that one is all about team roles. So no matter how many people I have on the team, and I've done it upwards of like 60 people. Like that's the most
Mhm.
I've ever done. 60 people is I give them 2 slices of bread, a jar of peanut butter, and a jar of jelly, and we have to make a PB&J. Everyone on the team has to play a role in making the sandwich. Nobody can have the same role. Nobody can have more than one role. And we got to get the sandwich all the way made. And so they got to essentially make the simple task of a PB&J and break it up into 60 parts depending on how many people are there. And so everyone gets a different job. And so it's really cool. There's so many great lessons that come from it. My absolute favorite one though is the moment of realization, because everyone's like, oh, this is easy. And it's the moment of realization when they look around and they all ask me the same question. Wait, you didn't give us a knife. I'm like, yeah, I know I didn't give you a knife, right? You got to figure that one out. And so it's cool to see, because one of two things happens is people start counting a number of jobs and realizing that they're in the position where they may have to put their hands in a jar of peanut butter,
Yep.
and they immediately jump to the front. They're like, I got bread, right? And they immediately like try and get out of that place. Or you get somebody who sees that that's the solution, right? That someone's got to do it. And they just rise up and they're like, I'll do it. Like I got no problems doing that. And so it's really, really cool to see kind of one of those two of those things happen. So we just talk about, there's a lot of different things that I debrief from that activity. One of my favorites though is just the idea of dirty jobs, right? For me, a dirty job is kind of defined by something that is not glamorous at all, but it's an absolute game changer, right? Something that's not going to show up on the stat sheet. No one's going to get a Sports Center top 10. No one's going to write an article about it in the paper, but it's an absolute game changer. So in basketball, taking a charge, diving after a 50-50 ball is an example of it, right? Playing man, lockdown man defense in soccer, example of that, right? It's like, it's not fun at all. You're chasing a dude all around the field and it's not fun at all, not glamorous, but it absolutely changes the game. And so encouraging all of them to find a dirty job and make it theirs. Because the other thing about people who do dirty jobs is they become invaluable to their organization,
Yeah.
right? When an organization's like when they're looking to cut costs, like they're not going to cut the person who like does the filing.
No,
because everyone's looking around the room being like, I don't want to file.
you're not going to get rid of the guy doing the peanut butter. You're going to get rid of the guy that just brings the bread over to you.
Absolutely, right? It's like, hey, you know what? We can have two people do that thing, right? Absolutely right. So like you create, this is really valuable for younger players who are like, their future might be uncertain for them. The JV player is not sure they're going to make varsity, and I'm like, the quickest way to make that varsity squad, the quickest way to get scouted, right, and take your talents to the next level, is by doing dirty jobs, because coaches also know that like that dirty job needs to be done, and they don't want to, they don't want to be coaching a dude to do the dirty job. They want like somebody who will come in and do it automatically, right? So the one of the best ways to create value for yourselves is find the dirty job and make it yours, right? That it's like, hey, who's bringing gear off the bus today? It's like, oh, it's definitely John. Like John's definitely doing that, right? Like we don't have to like make the freshman job. We don't got to like haze the new guys by having them bring gear. Like, nope, somebody's already doing that. Like they're creating value for themselves.
Love it. The other one I want to ask you, more into a positivity cocktail, but tell me about the negativity cocktail.
Yeah, another super fun one. I kind of came out of nowhere. I was it was a hot July day. I was working with a high school baseball team, obviously in their off season, and for once in their lives, these baseball players had actually been running, and so they not season, and so they were super like not dehydrated, but they were thirsty. They were dying, and as they were tired, like the self, not I guess not the self talk, but the conversation started to change. A lot of like complaints and things like that, and so I brought them all together, and we in the dugout, as have you been in a baseball dugout, unless it's like part of their identity that they keep things super clean. There's like always not trash, but just like
It's messy.
anyway. In this case, there were a bunch of like mustard, ketchup, and relish packets from like the hot dog stand. Anyway, so I brought them over and I was like, "Hey guys, like, have you ever been outside where it's super hot? You've been running and like just describing their current situation." And I was like, "It's one of my favorite things to like when I get home, like I open up the fridge and there's just like a nice cold bottle of water. God, you remember how good that tastes? That you can just see their mouth just like starting to salivate. And they're going, man, like that's what they wanted right there." And I was like, can you imagine just like reaching up and grabbing that water, and instead of like grabbing crystal clear like pure water, and then I was like, and you grab this thing, and I pull a water bottle out from behind my back, and while they'd been doing their work, I had like emptied like ketchup, mustard, relish into the water bottle, and I shook it up. So it just looked gross, right? It's one of those second grade lunchroom type of looks, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, imagine like this is what you find, and they're like, oh, that's gross. And I'm like, yeah, and now you got to drink it. And they all thought I was like dead serious. And I was just like, here you go, Ryan. And Ryan's looking at me like, are you joking? Anyway, so we just started talking about like why would you not want to drink that? Why would that not? And you got the answer of like, it's gross, but it's also not refreshing, right? Like it doesn't actually do anything for you in your current state of like of dehydration, right? And so we talked about that, and that's why I said, I was like, did any of you notice the mood, the vibe, how the conversation changed when things got hard around here, right? Like what was the mood at the beginning of practice before things got hard, right? It was light, it was helpful, positive, productive, and now it's just like it's complaints, coach, coach this, coach that, the heat, all the different things, right? And I was like, it's essentially what you're doing is you give into and you talk about those negative, those hurtful, unproductive things. It's like you're after a long run, you reach in and you grab this nasty drink, right? In terms of what it's doing for you, it's not productive anymore, and it's not providing you with what you need. Anyway, so it was a really, really good example. And so now I kind of take that around with like different teams that I'm working with. I'll have, actually have in my office like a big bag of like condiments or whatever. And so anytime we come in to teach, anytime I come and teach this lesson, I'm actually having them like add it to the water, and I'm like, tell me about your most frustrating moment. Like, tell me what's a negative thought that you remember hearing someone say on this team, or you yourself have said in this frustration. It's just like, oh, this, it's not worth it. Great, dump that ketchup packet in this water, right? We kind of go around, and I'm like, would you drink this now? Like, would you drink this now, right? And we just make it gross. I actually have, Oh my word. Dude, Ty, this is your lucky day, my friend.
Oh man.
This is my original. This
Oh
is my
yeah.
original. I can't
Delicious.
I totally forgot. It was sitting in my garage for like
That is
6 years.
that is not
That,
AG1 greens in there.
no. And yeah, I totally forgot where I was actually just thinking. I was like, I wonder where that bottle is because that'd be kind of fun to take around to these teams. And yeah, it's like literally right behind my computer monitor.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love
that's
it.
the original one from that baseball team that has
Is
just sat for 7 years now.
that cap's on pretty tight?
That cap's on very tight.
Okay.
Although it is a plastic bottle, so like the ability for that thing to disintegrate right through, like I might have to change things up or whatever. But
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
but but the other thing that's really great about that one that I like is it's a great leave behind. Like that this bottle sat in that dugout, all of the next year, right? So guys coming in, they saw that, right? And so just trying to make things memorable, trying to make like the lesson, trying to make coaches' lives easier, right? They're shelling out money to have me come, but they're shelling out time as well, right? So like if I can make an impact, right then it's awesome, right? But if I can make that impact last longer and longer and longer, and I think one of the ways we make our impact last longer is by making things that are memorable or making something that can stay behind.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm always trying to do. So some of those activities in my bio just kind of pique people's attention or whatever. Like what on earth is that? But that's all I'm trying to do. Is just
I
trying to
love
make
it.
things memorable for them.
I'm definitely gonna make some kids try to slather some PBJs here in the
Yeah.
future. What a question, it's basketball season. I know you've spent some time in the basketball world too. Coaches that listen, you got a timeout. Sometimes the coaches like to get right into the problems, the observations, and those kind of things. What's something maybe a coach listening that they could do new to kind of prime their players to kind of come out of that timeout in the best, position?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? And timeouts are being taken for like lots of different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I get really impressed by, I guess I'll say that when I see a coach do this, I get really really impressed is when they are not informing but they're teaching, right? Instead of like let me give you the answer, it's a whole like teach a man to fish, give him a fish type thing, right? When I see a coach like ask a question, that is honestly one of the most impressive things because I mean that 30 seconds, that minute, even if it's a full timeout, like that minute goes by quick. And so when a coach is ready to ask a question, I'm like, dude, this guy's ready, and this is going to be an effective timeout because he is facilitating learning, right? He's not just like changing a quick behavior. He's essentially like teaching why in hopes that like we don't have to take a timeout for this ever again. I get really impressed when a coach teaches and when they ask a question. I think that's really really awesome. The other thing that I really like when coaches do, this one's a lot harder because I see it mostly when like maybe the other team takes a timeout. I'm not sure how many times I've seen it when like I take a timeout to do this. But when I think about like changing behavior, right? Like there's the right behavior, there's the wrong behavior. There's two ways to go about things. You either stop wrong behaviors or you increase right behaviors, right? And so I really like when coaches don't emphasize what the team is doing wrong, being like, hey guys, we need to be doing this. So you shouldn't be fouling anymore, right? And instead the coach is like, hey, do you guys remember 2 possessions ago? What like why was that a great defensive possession? Like, yeah, and let them answer, right? That's where the question comes in. That's one of my absolute favorites, right? But you start identifying what made that possession great, and you're essentially giving an opportunity to reinforce. Is like, hey, when we get back out there, I don't want you to not foul. I want you to do these other things that help make a great possession, right? Like, yeah, there was great communication on defense, right? That we understood our defensive assignments in terms of switching or hedging or whatever it is, right? Like these are the things that made that good. Let's go do more good instead of just like stopping, trying to axe some of these like negative behaviors,
Yeah.
right? And so like a lot of times coaches I've seen like they're working towards the same thing, right? They're simply trying to like make better behavior, right? But a lot of times coaches, because it's quick, right? Of like, hey, here's the problem, identify the problem, we're done with the problem. But that's great if you already have like a great relationship, and if you got players who are like on the same, level, not level, but like, mental plane as you, I guess, that they understand immediately. That's one of my favorite things coaches can do is like reinforce like the positive behaviors. And like then as an athlete, I'm not like, wait, what am I not doing out here? Like instead I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go do more of what I have done previously, right? I'm gonna go do
Yeah.
more talking. I'm gonna go do more ball movement. I'm gonna go do more execution, whatever it is, instead of avoiding the negative. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. One thing I was going to ask, working with a variety of student athletes at different levels in sports, uh, from your observations, especially in recent years, months, what are some of the skills that you see those athletes hungry and excited to kind of learn and utilize to navigate not just sports but probably life too?
Oh, that's a great question. So I understand it correctly. So what skills are they
When they get it,
eager, like excited to be using?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. When you kind of teach them, they're like, "Ooh," you see those aha moments come quicker.
yeah. Uh, Writing in a journal.
Mm,
I grew up being taught to write in a journal and hated it, and so I didn't do it. Like it was 100% just like another task for me to do. There's just like, oh man, one more thing I would do before bed, and like, oh, one more thing to stop me from going to bed. And so like I never did. When I it was one of the things I've been teaching now is journal writing for performance, right? And it's not so much about like a personal history, but instead it's to be able to like allow, well, first, I think two things happen. I think one is I think that you get closer to acceptance. I call writing in a journal an exercise in acceptance, right? That you just write things as they are, not trying to control the thought, not trying to force it, some different way. There's no outcome attached to whatever it is that you write, but you're just writing to write. And so I think acceptance becomes like way easier. But
yeah,
the other thing that I think athletes are starting to like love with when they're writing in their journal is because there's not a prompt and I'm just like, hey, just let it go and just write for whatever it might be, is really fun for them afterwards to like start analyzing thought patterns, right? Have some athletes in the college ranks who are like, man, when I'm writing, like after I have a great race or a great practice, I like just start writing. And one of the patterns that I notice is that like I identify the positive, and then I'm like immediately like, I wonder how, or I hope that it will last. Right. So there's this immediate doubt that like, whatever good thing happening to me isn't going to last.
yeah.
Right. So we started identifying thought patterns that all came because of their journal. And so I think that's probably the thing that has been like most fun, and has been really, really cool for athletes to like work on and use, that it's not a journal for like, it's not a personal history one,
Yeah,
but instead it's like, hey, let's figure out how you think.
yeah,
Because I think a lot of athletes are a little, maybe at this level, are that there's a little bit of embarrassment that they don't know how they think, right? That they can't answer it, right? It's like, well, here's
yeah,
how I think. And
yeah,
so when they get to find the answer for themselves, like as they write in a journal and start analyzing their own thought patterns and realizing some patterns, realizing
yeah,
some tendencies, I think they like, it helps them do it more, and they're like really excited. They're really excited about that.
for sure. And yeah, especially when you can get them to, like you said, prompt with, without this judgment, just let it kind of go
Yeah.
and flow. I've been, yeah, doing a little bit of journaling, and I think also with the coach, and it was, kind of as you kind of in my own recent experience in that kind of thought analysis, and with someone be able to kind of like also look at it, was just it pointed out, the subconscious things that would come in.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's not what you were prompted, and that's not what you told me. But you see how your subconscious, when you dump, your
Mm-hmm.
subconscious is coming out this way and that way. And it's like, oh yeah, so interested, and it was exactly that. Like, okay, that how is that impacting the thought patterns?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
definitely having an impact, right?
Yeah.
And so that was, I think just something yeah, it kind of taking that to that next level. And I think we had another guest talk about, I think it was a format that I think athletes, she called it writing a rut, just let your
No,
raw
cool.
raw unfiltered thoughts.
Ooh, I love it.
Yeah, it's just like, and get them to just dump it. And then,
Yes.
a lot of times too, it's like then you can judge your thoughts a little bit more accurately and be like,
Yeah.
now that I wrote that, I don't know if I'm really angry, but I am confused. I am still confused though, like,
Yeah.
and
Right,
so,
right, right. Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's one of the cool things that's been really like enlightening for a lot of athletes that I've been working with is that like we talk a lot about control, what coach doesn't, right? And athletes are
Sure.
so well aware of the whole like control the controllables. But it's been really fun to ask athletes that question as they're writing in their journal, like experiencing these emotions. It's like, hey, is your emotion in your control or out of your control? And they're like, oh, it's in my control. And it's been really fun to like help them realize that their emotions are out of their control. But but what relates to our emotions that's in my control is how I express my emotion and how long I express or hold on to that emotion, right? And so that's one of the cool things that this journal like really kind of allows, right? Like raw, unfiltered thought. I love that. It's like if you're peeved, like write about it. You're not like I don't. I'm an adult telling you, hey, it's okay to be mad, and like I'm not even mad that you're mad. Like go ahead and write about it. Just express yourself, right? And then you start realizing, like as you write it out, that's like, man, you know what? Like I don't actually need to be upset about that, right? Or like my intensity of that emotion doesn't necessarily like warrant the moment
Hmm.
or whatever. And so like recognizing that like I think it's been really freeing
Yeah,
for athletes
it
because they
creates that detachment. You can put it down and then you can detach from it
right.
if it's not serving you.
Yeah. And I think for also for so long, this is something I try and be really wary of as a parent now. But I think for so long athletes, I remember, myself, like there's whether it was consciously said, but there's this definite idea that like if you get frustrated when you're playing a sport, like that you're wrong.
Mm.
That it's like, not necessarily that you're bad or you're a bad person,
It
right? But
shouldn't
it's like, hey,
happen.
yeah, that shouldn't happen. Right. And so for them to like experience and be told and like write it out that like you can experience frustration and that's not out of your control, but it's what really is freeing is helping them identify what is in their control, right? Of like how you express it and how long you express that for. Right. I kind of tell that athletes, I'm like, I actually don't really care whatever experience you have. Like what I really care about is those two things, right? Like if you're gonna fly off the handle with like, a bunch of F bombs and terrible language, like at least make sure it's deliberate, right? At least make sure it's on purpose, right? Now we don't necessarily want that as a best reaction, right?
Sure.
But for them to understand that like they're in control of how they express it, right? I think that's so freeing because we experience, like I said, out of our control. Like when I miss a shot, I'm gonna be frustrated, right? And so like not only am I frustrated, but now there's this like guilt for being frustrated, and now I got to deal with both of those things, right? Instead of it's very freeing to be like, hey, I'm frustrated. Okay, like how are you going to express that, right? And how long are you going to express that for, right? That it's like, man, I'm going to like clap my hands together and say some things to myself, but then as soon as that's done, I'm going to be back to peak form or wherever it is, right? But it's been really freeing, and it's again another like benefit that's come from like cracking open that journal.
Well, one last question as we wrap up. In your work, what brings you the most joy, John?
Wait, say that one again.
In your work, what brings you the most joy?
Oh, what brings me the most joy? Oh man, that's a great question. Brings me joy. All right, I got to think about that. When I think about joy, I got to think about the things that just automatically like bring a smile to my face. Um, that's awesome. Uh, I mean, I just when someone gets it right, like when somebody like you see them do something different and it pays off.
Yeah.
It brings me a lot of joy when something I taught somebody pays off, but like it doesn't even like see it. And so I expect them coming back being like, hey, that didn't really work for me. And they come back, they're like, oh my gosh, dude, that was awesome. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh shoot, I didn't even like see that one come up. So that's always like, that's always super fun. With those like, aha moments are really, really good. But I think probably the biggest thing is just like the joy. Sorry, is the joy of relationships. I
Yeah.
think it's probably what brings me like the most joy is like not even when I'm teaching, but showing up to a game or showing up to a practice is like, oh yeah, sweet, John's here. I'm like, okay, like not the like the sense of like popularity, but like, oh, they don't hate me. But it's like the fact that they know that they're about to be challenged, and they're like looking forward to that.
Yeah.
That means that's a good thing. That's a good sign for me. And I think it brings me a lot of joy.